Pay attention, Madridista.
A historic change at the Bernabeu is about to happen. And one of our stars decided to ignore the call of English money to continue fighting for the heaviest crest in the world. But hey, the story is much hotter than you imagine. And wait, because there's another bombshell detail: a young talent from the academy is leaving, while the board prepares an out-of-this-world proposal for a champion of everything in England. All this moving the pieces of the puzzle left by two legends who recently said goodbye. It's crazy. Before I tell you all about it, subscribe to the channel. Here is information from Madridista to Madridista, without beating around the bush, without filter, and with that emotion that only those who love Real Madrid understand. Let's start with a change that could mark a new era at the Santiago Bernabeu. Kylian Mbappé, the French star who arrived surrounded by expectation and immediately made his mark by winning the Golden Boot and the Pichichi right away, will leave aside the number 9. Yes, that same number that became mystical in the club's recent history. Now, he decided to follow in the footsteps of his greatest idol, the legendary Cristiano Ronaldo. How so? Simple. After a season wearing a number and already showing his worth, Mbappé will change to 10.
Yes, that 10.
The magical number of the midfield, of creativity, of leadership. And who used it before? The eternal maestro Luka Modric, who left the club after the Club World Cup. Mbappé, who also wears the 10 for the French national team, practically confirmed everything with a simple post: 10.
That's it.
It was enough to ignite the fans and make everyone understand that a new phase has begun. The mission now is clear: lead the team to the titles that escaped this last season. Mbappé had an impressive season, but Real Madrid as a collective ended up disappointing. They didn't win the Champions League or La Liga. Only the European Super Cup and the Intercontinental Cup came. And for Real, that's little. Very little.
The fans want more. The club demands more.
And Mbappé himself knows that. Now the question remains: who will inherit the 9? The most talked about names are two: Endrick Felipe, the young Brazilian who just arrived and is already treated as a gem, and Gonzalo Garcia, a boy from the academy who also wants his space. But Endrick suffered a serious injury and won't be leaving this summer, which could open the way for him to take the mantle. Or then, the number could remain vacant until someone proves they deserve it. Comment there, Madridista. Who do you want to see wearing the 9 next season? And leave a like if you're excited about this new phase of our number 10. Now hold this. While some thought Eduardo Camavinga would fall into the temptation of crossing the English Channel for a few more millions, he showed he has a merengue soul. Yes, he and his agents simply ignored the heavy harassment from the Premier League. Big English clubs are eyeing him, especially now that Real is sounding out reinforcements for the midfield. But Camavinga made it clear: he wants to stay at the Bernabeu. Even with the shadow of new signings approaching, including a very heavy name from the current English champion, and with fierce competition within the squad with names like Aurelien Tchouameni, Federico Valverde, and Arda Güler, the guy is firm. He doesn't want to leave. He doesn't want to talk. And Real doesn't want to sell either. The club has already sent the message: Camavinga is a key player for the future. Versatile, young, already experienced, he can play as a defensive midfielder, attacking midfielder, even as a fullback if needed. Even with some criticism about his discipline on the field and doubts about where he best fits into the new coach Xabi Alonso's scheme, the board believes in his potential. And you know what's crazier? Even if that millionaire reinforcement from City arrives, which we'll talk about soon, the club wants to keep him in the squad. This shows how much he is valued internally. Pure Madridismo. Xabi Alonso has an enormous challenge: build a midfield that honors the legacy of Kroos and Modric. And even under pressure, he trusts Camavinga as one of the pillars of this new project. It's no small thing. And the Frenchman knows that. Now, do you think Camavinga should remain an absolute starter or become a luxury option on the bench? Comment there, I want to know your opinion. Now let's talk about a silent farewell, but one that could bear fruit in the future. Chima Andres, one of the greatest talents from the Merengue Academy, is packed and ready for Germany. A 20-year-old defensive midfielder, with 3 professional games and presence in the Club World Cup campaign, will sign with VfB Stuttgart for €3 million. Real Madrid accepted the departure, but with conditions: a buyback clause and a percentage of a future sale. In other words, the club believes he can return bigger in the future. And note, he rejected proposals from La Liga because he specifically wanted this chance abroad, to gain experience and minutes in a different scenario. He arrived in 2018 from Levante, grew up in La Fabrica, scored goals for Castilla, and now embarks on a new challenge.
Good luck, kid.
But keep an eye out, Madridista. If he shines in Germany, The buyback is in the bag. Chima's case reminds us of other gems who left, evolved and returned bigger. Carvajal at Leverkusen, Casemiro at Porto. So it's worth following his trajectory closely. Real Madrid doesn't invest in the academy for nothing. When they bet, it's because they see a future. And speaking of reinforcements and the future of the midfield, prepare your heart. Real Madrid is ready to spend €115 million on a single player. Yes, Rodri, the Manchester City star and elected best in the world in 2024, is in their sights. Since Toni Kroos retired, and now with Modric also saying goodbye, the team is without that player who organizes everything in the middle. Alonso, the new coach, doesn't want to repeat the mistake of not having reinforced the sector before the World Cup. The preferred name? Rodri, City's pillar. A monster on the field, leader, engine of Guardiola's team. But there are two big problems in this story. 1. He recently returned from a serious injury and is still regaining his rhythm. 2. Guardiola doesn't want to give up the player who is his extension on the field. Even so, Florentino Perez considers releasing the money, as long as the player has media appeal, galactic style. And let's face it, being the current Ballon d'Or winner, there's no shortage of media attention. Rodri would be the perfect fit for the game model Xabi Alonso is trying to implement: possession, intensity, and total control of the game. With him, Real would have a brain in the middle, someone who dictates the rhythm and also helps close defensive spaces. But for $115 million, they can't make a mistake. The negotiation, however, is difficult. Besides Rodri's physical condition, his contract with City runs until 2027. And the English club wants to keep him at all costs. Only a desire from the player to wear white can change the scenario. And that's where the charm of the Bernabeu comes in. Because when Real Madrid calls, it's hard to say no. But what do you think, Madridista? Is it worth investing this fortune for a defensive midfielder? Or is it better to look for another profile? Comment there, leave a like, and share with that friend who follows the market. And before finishing, if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, what are you waiting for? This is where you live Real Madrid 24/7. Every week there's a new video, hot news, analyses, behind the scenes, and of course, a lot of emotion. Real Madrid. See you in the next video.